Have you ever cut your fabric and then realized that you cut it too small?
Have you ever measured your fabric and found you were short a few inches?
Have you ever wanted to fussy cut a motif only to find your fat quarter has split it in half? You could need more fabric for a variety of reasons. And today's quilting tutorial is about using what you have and getting your quilt finished. So stick with me and I'll show you how to do it. Hi, I'm Karen Brown of Just Get It Done Quilts. I give you tips, tricks, and strategies to help you make the quilt that you want to make. And if you like what you see, please click that subscribe button. We love to buy fabric, but it usually sits in our stash for several years before we can figure out how to use it. And if we need to buy more, it's long gone from our local quilt store. We can need more fabric for a variety of reasons. And here are 7 ways that you can deal with a fabric shortage. Sometimes you have enough fabric, but it's in the wrong shape.
Maybe you need a jelly roll strip, but you only have fat quarters. Just fold your fat quarter in half horizontally, then cut along the fold. Then sew it back together again along the side seam. Now you have a width of fabric piece that you can cut your jelly roll from. Easy peasy. Or you may have the opposite problem. You need to cut a large square and you only have a 1/4 yard. It's the same process, but this time you cut your yardage vertically on the center fold. Then sew it back together on the horizontal. Now it's big enough to cut that large block.
Or maybe you cut your fabric wrong and you do not have enough fabric left to cut another one. I made a quilting mistake in my Victoria and Albert quilt. It was a kit, and the one piece that I cut wrong was the only piece that I didn't have extras of. I did a bit of research and I could have bought more, but I decided to save the money. I simply sewed them together and put them in the quilt. And no one has ever noticed that I cut it wrong. Oh, and I had enough leftovers of all the other fabrics to make an epic afterquilt. And you can see how I did it in this video here. Fussy cutting can be fun. Unfortunately, when we need more than one motif, it can be hard to get more out of our cut of fabric. So I have already used this Pinkerville fabric to cut out diamonds for my new hexagon Millefiore. So now it's a little bit more like Swiss cheese than it is a fabric cut. But I have managed to cut out 2 complete unicorns. And I managed to cut out this 3rd one, but it's missing a corner.
And I dug through my scraps and managed to find this extra swatch of the corner, which means I can splice them together. First, on the larger piece, turn over the edge a 1/4 of an inch. Now I like to use a template here to keep this accurate. Next, grab some glue. I'm using Acorn Seam-Align, and I just dot it along the edge here, and then I flip it over and then align the edge to the motif on the smaller piece. This glue needs to be set with a hot iron, and it's in this crease here that we will sew our seam. With wrong sides together, trim off any excess fabric. Sew along the crease, then trim your block if necessary. Who can guess which one is the splice block?
But what if I needed 4 unicorns from this mess? This is the biggest piece of unicorn I can find. And I do have 2 other bits of the unicorn, like this. But I can't find this little spot in the middle. So what do I do now?
First, I'm going to cut these 2 pieces so that I'm dealing with a straight line. One will be the bottom and one will be the side. And on each of the pieces, I'm turning over the inside edge 1/4 of an inch. And as we line up the motifs, we can see that this is the size of piece that we need to find.
And if we look at the original one, we're looking for some greenery with a big bud. And I think if we look at all this, We're not going to find that anywhere. It has already been used on other stuff. So I am going to have to choose another piece of greenery that's just similar.
And I found this one and I think it will do. It has a little bit of greenery in it, so the branch continues, and from a distance you're not going to notice a difference. I start with the rump piece because that has the most alignment with the new insert. And I glue, press, trim, and sew it just like the last piece. Next, I align my bottom piece with the motif. But before I glue and sew it, I align my top piece to the motif. Just be sure nothing has gone out of square. Once I'm sure it's in the right place, I glue, press, trim, and sew it just like before. And then I put the last piece on. I carefully align it to the two other pieces, but I don't really worry about the middle. And after one last press and trim, it's time to play. Can you guess which one was spliced?
Before we go to the next tip, let me tell you about Blueland. You know that I've been making a lot of scrap quilts, and I am amazed at how much dust it makes. And I've had to do a lot of cleaning to keep it under control. I am so glad to have found Blueland cleaners. Unlike your traditional liquid cleaners that are sold in single-use plastics, with Blueland, all you need to clean your house is this bobbin-sized tablet. And this is how it works. You fill your Forever bottle with warm to hot water, just to the watermark. Drop one of these bobbin-sized tablets into the bottle. Honestly, watching it dissolve just never gets old. And with no shaking or stirring, they're ready to use in minutes. Refills run a little more than $2 a tablet.
You can get even more savings by buying in bulk or setting up a subscription.
I like them so much, I use their hand soap and toilet cleaner too. Blueland uses no single-use plastics in any components, from bottles to tablets, wrapping to shipping materials. And these boxes are perfect to be repurposed as project boxes and drawer dividers. If you click on the link below, you'll get 15% off your first kit.
You don't want to miss out on this great offer.
Most fabric sits in our stash for a long time before we ever figure out what to do with it. So most likely it's also sitting in the stash of one of your quilting friends. So ask them. I'm attempting to finish off my Toronto Modern Quilt Guild traveling quilt, and I would like to use these seahorses from my middle fabric,
But in this green colorway.
out in the borders. But I didn't have enough. So I reached out to my friend Geeky Bobbin, who used to use a lot of tulip pink fabric, and she had it. Since the seahorses were out of print, therefore more valuable, I've offered up my Elizabeth or my Tabby Cat in exchange. She chose the Tabby Cat. I was happy, she was happy, and now I can get this quilt finished. Chances are you are in several online quilting groups, whether that be Facebook, Reddit, a subscription group, or just Instagram. Of course you're going to share a photo, but it will help a lot if you have the name of the fabric and the designer as well. As I said, if you had it in your stash, it is most likely in somebody else's. But be prepared to pay fair market value plus shipping.
And finally, there's also this amazing event on Instagram where you make a quilty wish, and if you're lucky, someone might answer. It's called Get Your Quilty Wishes Granted. It's been running for several years, and if anybody knows a little bit more about it, please leave more details in the comment section.
Check your stash to see if you have something similar that will do. And when I say check your stash, be sure to be looking at it in the size that you think you'll be using. I use old cereal boxes to cut out frames in the size of blocks. And be sure also to check it from 3 steps away and from across the room. Depending on how much you need, get strategic in how you'll use it. If it's just a couple of blocks, use it in the corner or a band across the quilt. If you need to use a lot, you can use it like a border around your quilt, or in just one half, or in alternate blocks. In my ALENTEJANA quilt, I didn't have enough fabric for any of the choices. So I chose to work with more than one fabric in the same color and value. And I just loved how it turned out. Many designers continue to use the same color story over many collections. It's never quite the same, but the intention is that it will still work with their older lines. Lori Holt, Tula Pink, Fig Tree and Company are just three that I can name off the top of my head. Look for fabrics in the same value first, then pattern and color. If you don't know the name of the designer or the line, you can use Google Images to search for you. Take a picture of your fabric, crop it if necessary, and click search. You will see so many similar fabrics that you didn't know existed. It's amazing how many smaller stores there are out there, and they still have bits of stock from lines that are many years old. If you have the name and the designer of the fabric, look on Etsy. Tula Pink's Monkey Wrench line was shipped in 2019. Look at how much is still available through these smaller stores. You can also try stores that are geared to walk-in traffic. In my Where to Buy Fabric in Toronto videos, there was this amazing store called Fabric that had floor-to-ceiling bolts, plus Len's Mills, where you can often find fabric from older lines. And of course, you might be able to locate it on secondary market platforms too, like eBay or Feel Good Fibers. Let's search for Purebred by Erin Michaels, which came out around 2017. You can still find cuts of fabric available. I hope you can use some of these tips to use up your stash and, of course, make you feel confident enough not to overbuy. If you want to watch my Where to Buy Fabric in Toronto playlist, I'm going to leave that right here. And I'll also leave a link to my interview with Geeky Bobbin. Take care, and I'll see you next time.